When Mafia boss Dominic hears his fiancée has been threatening his twins, he rushes home unannounced at 12 a.m. The mansion feels unusually silent, and something about the air makes his stomach tighten. As he walks deeper inside, he suddenly sees something so disturbing it shakes him to the core, something he never imagined could happen under his own roof. What did he witness, and what will he do next? To find out, watch the story till the end, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Dominic Moretti stepped through the front door of his mansion well past midnight, unannounced and unescorted. He had made sure not to call ahead or alert his security detail that he was coming home early. The house lay in darkness, save for a few dim nightlights along the hall. As the boss of Chicago's most powerful crime family, Dominic usually traveled with guards, but not tonight. Tonight, he wanted to slip in quietly and observe his home when no one thought he was watching. He loosened his tie and paused. Something felt off. The mansion should have been peaceful at this hour. His 8-year-old twins, Lucas and Sophia, would be asleep in their beds, and his fiancée, Victoria Hale, likely reading in the study or retired to the master bedroom. But the atmosphere was tense. Then he heard it, a faint muffled sound from upstairs. Crying. Dominic's pulse kicked as he realized it was a child's soft sob. He quickly and silently moved up the grand staircase, careful to make no sound. As he ascended, the quiet weeping grew clearer. It was Sophia. Why would his daughter be crying so late at night, trying so hard to stay quiet? On the landing, a dim sliver of light spilled into the hallway from a door left slightly ajar. It was the small pantry off the kitchen. Dominic crept closer, sticking to the shadows. Voices came from within. Victoria's voice, cold and scolding, and another, their housekeeper, Zara, sounding fearful, yet determined. Dominic's chest tightened at what he saw through the narrow opening of the pantry door. Lucas was huddled on the floor inside the pantry closet, a cramped dark space. His cheeks were wet with tears, and he looked absolutely frightened. Victoria stood by the door, one manicured hand gripping a silver dinner tray with a porcelain plate of untouched food, his son's dinner. Dominic's jaw set in anger as understanding dawned. Victoria had denied Lucas his meal as punishment. "You think this is unfair, Lucas?" Victoria's tone was icy. "Children who break the rules don't get to eat. I warned you." Lucas hiccuped a sob. I'm sorry, Aunt Victoria. I'm sorry," he stammered, voice raw from crying. Dominic felt something twist painfully in his chest. Lucas called her aunt at her insistence, as if she were family. The trust implied in that word made the scene even more horrific to Dominic. A small whimper drew Dominic's eye to the side. Sophia was standing just outside the pantry in the hallway, her back pressed to the wall. Tears streaked her face. She looked terrified to even make a sound. Victoria whipped her head toward Sophia. "Quiet, Sophia," she snapped. "Unless you want to join your brother in the dark. Is that what you want? To be locked away like a bad girl?" Sophia frantically shook her head, choking back her sobs. Dominic's hands balled into fists. He was seconds from storming in and ending this madness, but he forced himself to hold back, heart pounding. If he charged in now, Victoria would surely hide behind her usual mask of sweet concern and make excuses. He needed to see the truth clearly, and he saw it in how Victoria glared at the children, in how they cowered. Inside the pantry, Lucas gulped in fear. "Please, I'll be good. I promise," came his small, broken voice from the darkness. Victoria moved to shut the pantry door on Lucas again. Dominic's restraint nearly snapped, but someone else acted first. Zara suddenly stepped between Victoria and the door, catching Victoria's wrist mid-swing. "Ma'am, please," Zara begged, voice shaking. "They're just children." Victoria froze, stunned that a mere housekeeper dared to touch her. "Let go of me," she hissed. Zara released Victoria's arm but didn't back away, though Dominic could see her hands trembling. She put herself in front of the pantry doorway, shielding little Lucas inside. Sophia watched with wide eyes, hardly daring to breathe. "I won't let you lock him in there," Zara said, quietly resolute. "This is wrong. He's hungry and scared." For a heartbeat, Dominic thought Victoria might strike Zara. Victoria's free hand twitched, as if she might slap the maid aside. That was enough. Dominic stepped out of the shadows, his voice ringing with authority down the hall. "What is going on here?" he demanded, tone deadly calm. Victoria startled and spun around. In an instant, Dominic watched her transform, her fury and surprise smoothed into a practiced, angelic expression. A soft smile appearing as if nothing were amiss, she lowered the dinner tray to a side table and clasped her hands together, playing the picture of concerned innocence. "Dominic, you're home early," Victoria exclaimed, eyes wide with apparent delight. "Darling, I didn't hear you come in." Dominic's gaze swept the scene. Lucas curled up in the dark pantry, Sophia trembling by the wall, Zara standing protectively in front of the pantry door, and Victoria smiling as if this were a pleasant family gathering. His blood boiled, but he kept his face stony and unreadable. Quietly, he asked, "Explain. Now." Victoria rushed to speak before anyone else could. She let out a light, false laugh. "It's not what it looks like, I promise. Lucas was being naughty, sneaking sweets before dinner, so I gave him a short time out in the pantry to think about what he'd done." She gestured vaguely to the untouched dinner on the tray. "He claimed he wasn't hungry for his supper, so I thought he could stay in there a few minutes until he felt ready to apologize. I was just about to let him out, honestly." Dominic stepped forward. Sophia broke from the wall and ran straight into her father's legs, clinging to him. "Daddy," she whimpered. Dominic put a comforting hand on her head, never taking his eyes off Victoria. Lucas stumbled out of the pantry on unsteady legs. Dominic quickly knelt and opened his free arm to his son. Lucas rushed over, pressing his tear-streaked face against Dominic's shoulder. Dominic held both his children close, his heart aching at how they trembled. Victoria hovered nearby, still smiling that strained smile. "See? It was just a little discipline. No harm done," she said breezily, as though the matter were settled. "Sometimes you have to be strict with children to teach them, darling. You understand, don't you?" Dominic slowly stood upright, one arm protectively around each twin. The look he gave Victoria could have frozen fire. "Strict," he repeated, "is one thing. Starving and terrorizing them is another." Victoria's face faltered just a second, but she recovered, letting out a soft gasp of offense. "Terrorize? Darling, I would never terrorize them. You're misunderstanding me." She looked at the twins. "Lucas, Sophia, tell your father you're all right. Let him know I was only trying to help you learn." Lucas pressed himself further into Dominic, saying nothing. Sophia hid her face against her father's jacket. Their silence spoke volumes. Dominic's jaw tightened. He looked to Zara, who stood quietly to the side now. "Zara," he said gently, "please take Lucas and Sophia to their rooms. Stay with them." Zara nodded, relief evident on her face. She reached for Sophia's hand. The little girl hesitated, unwilling to let go of her father. Dominic bent and kissed Sophia's forehead, then Lucas's. "It's all right," he murmured to them. "Go with Miss Zara. I'll come tuck you in very soon." Lucas sniffled. "You promise?" "I promise," Dominic said firmly. He gave them each a reassuring look before gently easing them toward Zara. The maid gathered the twins, one on each side, and began to lead them down the hall. As they departed, Dominic heard Sophia whisper to Zara, voice quavering, "Are we in trouble?" "Of course not, love," Zara whispered back. "You did nothing wrong." Dominic waited until they descended the stairs and disappeared from earshot, before rounding on Victoria. The facade dropped from his face, and from hers as well. Her smile vanished, replaced by a wary, cool stare. He took 2 steps toward her, lowering his voice. "If you ever treat my children like that again, so help me." Victoria cut him off with a sudden sob. Catching him off guard, she covered her face with her hands. "Dominic, please," she pleaded, voice thick with feigned emotion. "I know it looked bad, but I'm trying to be a good future mother to them. You're away so often, someone has to enforce rules. I hate being strict, but the kids have been getting out of hand. I was afraid Lucas might hurt himself eating all those sweets. I only meant to keep him safe." Her act might have been convincing to some, but Dominic saw through it. Still, he reined in his temper. There was a bigger picture forming: Victoria's surprising cruelty, her immediate shift into victim mode when caught, and the strange feeling he had that tonight's incident was just the tip of an iceberg. He glanced at the pantry door and noticed faint scratch marks on the inside, near the frame. Scratches from small fingernails? Dominic felt a surge of guilt and fury. This had happened before. How many times had his children endured this nightmare while he was away? Victoria followed his gaze and quickly said, "It wasn't long, darling. Truly. Just a few minutes to make the point." "They won't even remember it tomorrow." Dominic narrowed his eyes at her curious choice of words. Before he could respond, he saw movement on the staircase. Zara was back, hovering hesitantly a few steps down. "Sir," Zara whispered urgently, beckoning him. Dominic strode a few paces away from Victoria to meet Zara at the base of the stairs, out of Victoria's immediate earshot. "What is it?" he asked quietly. Zara's eyes were wide with worry. "Sir, I think you should know. Tomorrow morning, Child Protective Services is coming. A social worker. There's going to be an inspection." Dominic's stomach dropped. "What?" Zara continued in a hurried whisper, glancing past him toward where Victoria stood watching like a hawk. "I overheard Ms. Victoria on the phone earlier. It sounded like an anonymous complaint was made about the children's safety. The timing, it's too perfect to be a coincidence." She swallowed. "It was planned, I'm sure of it. She knew you'd be away tonight, and—" Dominic understood immediately. Victoria had arranged for CPS to come, likely hoping to paint him as an unfit father, or to create some chaos. His blood ran cold at the thought. He gave Zara a grateful nod. "Thank you. Go back to the twins. Don't let them out of your sight." Zara pressed his personal cell phone into his hand. He hadn't even realized he'd left it on a side table when he walked in. "I'll be with them, sir," she promised, then hurried back upstairs. Dominic turned and found Victoria now only a few feet away, clearly trying to listen. He slipped his phone into his jacket pocket and froze. There was another device already there, one he didn't recognize. He pulled it out to find a cheap disposable cell phone with no contacts or identification on it. The screen lit up with a single text message. "Play the perfect father, or lose your heirs." Dominic's heart pounded as he read the ominous message twice. A threat to his children, and an instruction to act the perfect father. His eyes flicked to the new security camera mounted high in the hallway corner, one he hadn't approved, a camera watching his behavior. He looked at Victoria. Her expression was composed, but there was a glint of satisfaction in her eyes, as if she knew exactly what that text said. In that instant, Dominic saw the situation with chilling clarity. This was a trap. Victoria, perhaps with others, was setting him up. The CPS visit, the new cameras, the abuses inflicted on his children, all designed to provoke him or to manufacture evidence of him being an unfit, dangerous father. And the threat made it clear. If he didn't cooperate by playing the role they wanted, Lucas and Sophia would be taken from him. Dominic swallowed back a surge of rage. He slid the burner phone and its vile message back into his pocket and straightened his shoulders. Two could play at whatever game Victoria was running. When he spoke, his voice was eerily calm. "We'll discuss this tomorrow, Victoria. It's late. We should get some rest before everything happens." Something in his tone made her falter, just a flicker, but then she smiled sweetly again. "Of course, darling. Tomorrow is a big day, isn't it?" He stepped past her, done with this conversation. As he went, his gaze caught on the pantry door once more. The scratches on the inside were visible only at a certain angle. In the low light, a haunting reminder of what his children had endured. "No more," Dominic murmured under his breath, a promise to himself. Victoria watched him go, her smile persisting, but her eyes cold. As Dominic descended the staircase to his study, intent on calling his most trusted advisor, Angelo, even at this late hour, Victoria's soft voice followed from the top of the stairs. "Tomorrow everyone will see what kind of father you are." Dominic did not look back, but those words rang in his ears like a warning bell. Whatever was coming with the morning, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would do everything in his power to protect his children, and whoever had orchestrated this cruel game, Victoria included, would learn what kind of father and what kind of man Dominic Moretti truly was. Dominic stayed true to his word and checked on the twins after sending Victoria away. In their bedroom, he found Lucas and Sophia sitting up in their beds, still shaky and wide-eyed. At the sight of their father, they relaxed a little, though tears still glistened on their cheeks. Dominic sat on Sophia's bed and drew Lucas into a gentle hug. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I'm here. Nothing will happen to you while I'm here." Sophia rubbed her eyes. "Daddy, are you mad at us?" He shook his head slowly. "Never. You two did nothing wrong. None of this was your fault." Lucas bit his lip. "Aunt Victoria said if we told you, or if we were bad again, a doctor would come take us away." His small voice trembled. "She said he'd put us in a blue room." Sophia's lower lip quivered. "Is that true? Will a doctor take us?" Dominic's stomach churned at how terrified they looked. He mustered a soft smile. "No, my loves. No doctor is coming to take you. There's no blue room. She was trying to scare you, and I'm so sorry you had to hear that." He squeezed Lucas's shoulder reassuringly. I promise. Nobody will take you from me, okay? Lucas looked at him earnestly. Promise? I swear it, Dominic said, kissing Lucas's forehead and then Sophia's. You're staying with me. He remained with them until their eyes finally closed, humming a gentle melody and stroking their hair. When at last Lucas and Sophia drifted into an exhausted sleep, Dominic quietly stepped out into the hall where Zara waited. Are they all right now? She asked in a hushed voice. They will be, Dominic replied. Thanks to you. He held her gaze. You protected them tonight. I won't forget that, Zara. She flushed and shook her head. I only did what was right, sir. He nodded, acknowledging her courage. Tomorrow will be difficult. I need you to stay close to them. Keep watch, and if you see anything off, let me know immediately. I will, Zara promised. But what's going to happen when child services comes? Dominic's expression hardened. I'm going to handle it. I need to make some calls now, but trust me, I won't let anyone take my kids. Get some rest if you can. We'll need you sharp in the morning. Zara departed reluctantly, and Dominic headed to his private study downstairs. It was nearly 1 a.m., but he didn't hesitate to place a secure call. Angelo De Luca, his trusted consigliere, answered on the second ring. Boss, is everything all right? Angelo's raspy voice was laced with concern. Not even slightly, Dominic muttered, and in clipped tones he recounted the night's events. Victoria's abuse of the twins, her probable call to CPS, and the threatening message on the burner phone. Angelo listened in stony silence. When Dominic finished, Angelo released a curse. That conniving witch, he growled. I always had a bad feeling about her, but this is orchestrated. I suspect Santoro is behind it, Dominic said, lowering his voice as if the shadows had ears. This has his fingerprints. He's using the system against me, trying to make me look like an unfit father so he can hit me where I'm vulnerable. Angelo agreed immediately. Antonio Santoro led the rival syndicate that had long vied with the Moretti family. He's found a way to start a war without a single gunshot. If he gets your kids away from you, even temporarily, it'll destabilize you and your territory. Dominic's jaw tightened. Angelo didn't need to elaborate. A mafia boss who couldn't protect his own children would be seen as weak. The Commission of Families might rethink their alliances. Other sharks would circle. They want me to react poorly, Dominic said. If I lose my temper or do something violent when CPS is here, that's exactly what they need as proof against me. Then you must remain ice cold, Angelo said. Play their game. Be the perfect father. Give them nothing to use. Understood, Dominic replied. But they might try to take the twins regardless. Angelo, what exactly are we facing with this CPS visit? What have they set up? There was a rustle of papers on Angelo's end. The older man had likely leapt into action the minute Dominic called. I've been looking into it. It appears an emergency petition was filed tonight, claiming the Moretti home is unsafe. The judge on duty, one of Santoro's puppets, signed a removal order. That gives CPS the authority to impose a 72-hour protective custody for the kids if they think it's necessary. Dominic silently cursed. It was worse than he thought. They can take Lucas and Sophia for 3 days just based on a false complaint? Essentially, yes, especially with that judge greasing the wheels, Angelo said bitterly. Furthermore, they have paperwork to cover their tracks. There's mention of you supposedly signing consent for the kids to undergo psychological evaluation at some clinic during the hold. Dominic frowned. Clinic? Which one? Sicario Behavioral Center, Angelo answered. Ring a bell? Dominic's blood went cold. Sicario. The name matched what the children had been threatened with, the sockled blue room, and Zara had mentioned hearing the name earlier that night. As if summoned by thought, a soft knock came at the study door. Zara peeked in. Sir, I'm sorry. I overheard. Did you say Sicario Behavioral Center? Dominic beckoned her in and put Angelo on speaker. Yes, why? Zara took a hesitant step forward. When I worked at the General Hospital, I heard rumors about that place. It's supposed to help troubled kids, but people whispered that children sent there sometimes didn't come back out. Or if they did, they were changed. The word was, if someone powerful wanted a child to disappear or be hidden, Sicario had rooms for that. Jesus, Dominic muttered, scrubbing a hand over his face. The blue room wasn't just a scare tactic. It was likely a real location in that clinic, a destination for kidnapped children to be reprogrammed or sold, for all he knew. Angelo's voice came through, grim and certain. This is Santoro's doing, no doubt. They aim to get your kids into that clinic and then, Who knows? New identities, hostages, either way, out of your reach. For a long moment, Dominic didn't speak. He felt fury, yes, but also a cold clarity. This was a battlefield unlike any he'd fought on, a courtroom and a child welfare office, not the streets. He had to adapt. "We'll fight smart," Dominic said at last. "I'll cooperate with CPS to avoid giving them ammunition, but I won't let the twins out of my sight if I can help it." "Good. Meanwhile, I'll quietly pull every string I can," Angelo said. "Maybe get an honest official to intervene, expose a flaw in their paperwork. But be prepared. Morning is going to be rough." Dominic thanked Angelo and ended the call. He looked at Zara. "Make sure any nanny cams or cameras in the house are obvious to me. I noticed one new camera in the hall. There could be more. Let me know if you spot any." "I will," Zara assured. "Try to get a little rest, sir. I'll watch over the kids." Dominic gave a reluctant nod. He reached into a desk drawer and pulled out his pistol. For a moment, he weighed it in his hand. The father in him wanted to keep it close, to be ready for a fight, but the strategist in him knew it would only cause trouble. With a sigh, he locked the gun away. No sooner had he stood to leave the study than the front doorbell echoed through the quiet house. It was nearly 3 a.m. Who would dare? Dominic went to the security monitor. A man stood outside the gate in a dark suit, holding a briefcase. He pressed the intercom again. "Mr. Moretti," the man called pleasantly. "I apologize for the hour. I'm Gerald Hennessy from Family Services. I have urgent court documents for you." Dominic's eyes narrowed at the grainy image on screen. Hennessy. He knew that face. Not from Child Services, but from old surveillance photos of Santoro's known associates. This man was a legal fixer for the Santoro crew. Dominic grabbed the intercom and replied coldly, "It's nearly morning. My children are asleep. This couldn't wait." "I'm afraid not, sir. It's about tomorrow's proceedings." "I'll receive the documents, but you can leave them at the gate," Dominic interrupted, unwilling to let the snake inside. There was a pause. "Sir, I really must hand them to you in person. It's protocol." Dominic saw through the act. "Leave them at the gate," he repeated icily, "or take them back. Your choice." Hennessy's polite mask slipped into a scowl, visible even on the night vision camera. Nevertheless, Dominic motioned to one of his guards, who cautiously opened the gate just wide enough for the so-called liaison to shove a thick envelope through. The guard retrieved it and quickly locked the gate again. Hennessy muttered something into his phone and walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the fence where a black sedan idled. Dominic tore open the envelope under the porch light. As expected, it contained official copies of the emergency court order Angelo had described, a judge's signature authorizing CPS to investigate and possibly remove the children, and even a fabricated consent form, with a scrawled signature mimicking Dominic's, agreeing to psychiatric placement for Lucas and Sophia at Sicario Behavioral Center, if deemed necessary. Dominic's vision burned at the sight of his forged name on that line. He pressed the papers back into the envelope, steeling himself. They had set the board and made the first moves. Come morning, it would be Dominic's turn. Before re-entering the house, Dominic looked up at the second floor. The light in the twins' bedroom was dim, but he could make out Zara's silhouette sitting vigil just inside, protecting them, as he should have been able to do without this nightmare. "Tomorrow," he whispered into the cool night air, "they'll learn who they're dealing with." He locked the front door and headed upstairs, his mind already strategizing. The enemy thought they held all the cards by using the law against him, but Dominic Moretti still had a few powerful cards of his own to play, and he would play them to win, for Lucas and Sophia's sake. Morning light filtered through the Moretti mansion, as Dominic prepared breakfast with deliberate calm. Dressed down in an apron and rolled up sleeves, he flipped pancakes for Lucas and Sophia. The twins sat at the kitchen island, attempting smiles at their father's domestic display. Dominic chatted softly about cartoons and weekend plans, doing everything possible to ease their nerves. Zara quietly set out juice and kept watch, phone in hand. Victoria soon appeared, looking every bit the doting fiancée in a pastel dress and a warm smile. "Good morning, sweethearts," she greeted the twins, giving Sophia a gentle kiss on the head. The children tensed, though Victoria pretended not to notice. Dominic offered her a terse nod, focusing on serving pancakes and projecting a picture of family harmony. The tension was palpable beneath the veneer. Dominic's ears were tuned for the sound he knew was coming, and it came at last, the doorbell's chime. Zara peeked at the security monitor. "Sir, Child Protective Services is here." Dominic's pulse thudded, but he gave the twins a reassuring squeeze. "It'll be okay. I'm right here, he promised. Leading the family to the foyer, he took a steadying breath and opened the door. On the doorstep stood a professionally dressed woman in her 40s carrying a clipboard, and just behind her, a younger man in a suit with a briefcase. The woman stepped forward with a polite but firm smile. "Good morning, Mr. Moretti. That's me," Dominic said, extending a hand. He forced a friendly expression. "You must be from Child Protective Services. Please, come in." She shook his hand. "I'm Elaine Porter, Family Welfare Investigator with CPS. This is my colleague, Mr. Collins, an observer from the court." She gestured to the man beside her. Dominic's gaze flicked to Mr. Collins. The man gave a curt nod, eyes sweeping the foyer and those present. Dominic's blood nearly ran cold. He recognized the so-called observer. Collins's real name was Colin Brenner, a lawyer often seen at Santoro's side during high-stakes meetings and negotiations. If Brenner was here pretending to be a neutral court observer, it confirmed how deeply Santoro had infiltrated this process. But Dominic maintained his calm smile as if nothing was amiss. "Welcome, Ms. Porter, Mr. Collins. Please, have a seat in the living room." As he led them in, Victoria glided forward with a cooperative smile. "Hello, I'm Victoria Hale," she introduced herself softly. "I'm Dominic's fiancée, and I help care for Lucas and Sophia." She placed a gentle hand on Sophia's back. The girl stiffened, but again Victoria acted as though all was fine. "We've been so worried since hearing about the anonymous complaint. I'm sure we can clear this all up quickly." Elaine Porter gave Victoria a polite nod. "I hope so, Ms. Hale. We're here to ensure the children are safe and well cared for, that's all." Dominic settled the twins on the couch with him. Zara hovered nearby as if she were merely a housekeeper on duty, but she positioned herself close to Lucas. The investigator began with standard questions, directing them mostly at Dominic and Victoria. As they talked, Mr. Brenner, alias Collins, quietly circled the room, ostensibly just observing and taking notes. But Dominic felt the man's calculating eyes on everything. Dominic offered the CPS agent coffee or water, which she declined, and then she got to the point. "We received a report of possible neglect or abuse in the household," Elaine stated, reading from her clipboard, specifically that the children might have been left in unsafe conditions and that Mr. Moretti may have anger management issues creating a harmful environment. Dominic's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his voice level. "I assure you, whatever you heard is a misunderstanding or a malicious lie. I take excellent care of my children. They are my world." He put an arm around Lucas, who pressed closer to his father. Victoria chimed in, voice silky with concern. "Of course, Dominic loves the kids. He's a wonderful father when he's here." She sighed, allowing a shadow of sadness to cross her face. "He does have a demanding job, though. Sometimes he comes home very late." Elaine looked up. "And what is Mr. Moretti's occupation?" "I'm an entrepreneur," Dominic answered smoothly. "I have various business investments around the city. Technically true, albeit omitting the underworld aspects." Victoria added quietly, "When he's away, I do my best to maintain order. The children, well, they've been a bit of a handful lately, acting out, possibly due to missing their father's presence." She gave Dominic a small, rueful smile. Dominic had to resist glaring at her. She was painting a subtle picture: an absent father, troublesome kids, and presumably her stepping in to discipline. The CPS worker made a note. Elaine Porter proceeded to ask if she could speak to the children alone for a bit. Dominic nodded, hiding his reluctance. Porter knelt in front of the twins, adopting a gentle tone. "Hi, Lucas. Hi, Sophia. I'm Elaine. I just want to chat with you for a couple of minutes. Is that okay?" Lucas looked up at Dominic, who gave him an encouraging nod. Sophia stole a glance at Victoria, who offered a reassuring smile that did not reach her eyes. "We can talk in your playroom or another room you like," Elaine suggested. "How about the family room just over there?" Victoria piped up helpfully. "It's full of their toys." Elaine agreed. As she guided the children just out of earshot, Victoria turned to Dominic and spoke under her breath, her tone sweet but words barbed. "Remember, perfect father, don't even frown the wrong way." Dominic didn't take the bait. He simply stared back with cool, unreadable eyes. While Elaine interviewed the kids in the next room, Mr. Collins Brenner cleared his throat. "Mr. Moretti, as a court-appointed observer, I need to take a quick look around the house for safety conditions. Perhaps Ms. Hale could show me the children's bedrooms and common areas." "Certainly," Victoria answered at once. Dominic was wary of leaving her alone with Santoro's man, but he couldn't object without raising suspicion. So he watched, hands clasped tightly behind his back, as Victoria led the so-called observer upstairs. Zara moved to Dominic's side and whispered, "Sir, careful. They might be trying to plant something or remove evidence." Dominic whispered back, "Keep an eye out from a distance, and check the pantry door." Zara slipped away quietly. After about 10 minutes, Elaine returned to the living room with Lucas and Sophia. Both kids looked uneasy. Sophia's eyes were red as if she'd been crying again. Dominic's heart clenched. He quickly sat on the couch and opened his arms. The twins rushed to him. Elaine observed the reunion, her expression neutral. "Thank you, Lucas and Sophia. You two were very brave talking with me." She then looked around. "Where is my colleague?" As if on cue, Victoria's laughter drifted from the stairs. She was descending with Mr. Brenner, apparently sharing a light joke, and so we finally had to put a child lock on the pantry because they kept sneaking cookies, she said merrily. Dominic's eyes narrowed ever so slightly. A child lock? That must be her excuse if the pantry came up. He saw Zara trailing behind them at a distance, shaking her head subtly at him, a sign that whatever evidence she hoped to show the inspector was gone or altered. Mr. Brenner addressed Elaine. "All appears in order upstairs," he said in a monotone, casting a quick glance at Dominic. Elaine nodded. "All right. Mr. Moretti, Ms. Hale, may I speak with you both now, privately?" Dominic gently disengaged from the children. "Zara, could you take them to the kitchen for a snack?" Zara stepped forward with a soft smile. "Come along, kiddos. Let's get you some juice, okay?" She guided the twins out, both of them looking back towards their father anxiously. Now it was just Dominic, Victoria, Elaine, and the supposed court observer in the living room. Elaine's previously cordial demeanor had turned more serious. "I appreciate your cooperation," she began. "I understand these situations can be uncomfortable. Whatever's best for the children," Victoria said, folding her hands in her lap, a picture of anxious devotion. "We only want them safe and happy." Elaine offered a tight smile. "Of course. Now, based on the report we received, the children's own statements and my observations, I have some concerns." Dominic felt a bead of sweat between his shoulders. This was the moment. He braced himself internally. Elaine consulted her notes. "Sophia and Lucas are clearly very bonded with you, Mr. Moretti. That's a positive. However, they also seem fearful. I noticed they flinched at loud noises and looked to Ms. Hale or yourself before answering some of my questions, almost as if looking for approval or afraid to say the wrong thing." Dominic kept his face calm. But inside he cursed the subtle conditioning Victoria must have done. "They're just scared of the situation," he explained steadily. "They've never had a stranger questioning them at home before." Victoria dabbed the corner of her eye with a tissue, performing distress. "They're sweet kids, but lately they've been on edge. Last night was difficult. We had a bit of a tantrum because I put the cookies away, and I fear it upset them." She sighed. Dominic came home and was very upset at the chaos. "It was just a misunderstanding, but the kids get frightened when there's shouting." She slipped that in smoothly. Dominic stiffened. Shouting? She was implying he'd lost his temper last night. A lie. But how could he disprove it? Elaine's lips thinned. Several neighbors have corroborated hearing yelling from the house at times, possibly domestic disputes. Dominic knew in a flash what had happened. Victoria or her allies had fed statements to CPS claiming the household was volatile. He forced himself to respond evenly. "We had an argument last night when I discovered Victoria had put Lucas in a brief timeout in a dark pantry. I was upset on my children's behalf. Perhaps my voice carried, but I did not harm anyone." Elaine raised an eyebrow and jotted that down. "Dark pantry? Could you clarify?" Before Dominic could, Victoria cut in, voice trembling. "It sounds terrible, but I only put him there for a minute and I was right at the door. He was throwing a wild tantrum and I panicked. I've never had children of my own, you see, and I was trying to follow some advice I read about giving a child a moment in a safe, confined space to calm down." She managed a convincing tear down her cheek. "Dominic came home at that exact moment and misunderstood. He thought I was being cruel. We argued." Elaine looked between them, absorbing this story. Dominic struggled to keep his expression steady. Victoria had just neatly justified her actions and made his reaction look unreasonable. "Regardless," Elaine said carefully, "my duty is to ensure the children's safety. Given the allegations, the judge's order, and what I've seen today, I have to err on the side of caution." I'm going to recommend that Lucas and Sophia be placed in a temporary 72-hour protective hold. Even though Dominic had been bracing for it, the words hit him like a truck. A protective hold. She was going to take them. For a moment, the room swayed. He heard Victoria give a soft gasp, playing her part as the worried guardian. Mr. Brenner watched Dominic like a hawk, probably savoring the moment. Dominic forced himself to take a slow breath. Exploding in anger would only prove them right. He had to stay composed, even now. "Miss Porter," he said, his voice tight but controlled. "I strongly object to that decision. I understand you have to follow protocol, but I assure you my children are in no danger under my roof." Elaine gave him a sympathetic look. "Mr. Moe, ready. This is a temporary measure. It will allow us to conduct a full investigation. You'll have the chance to present your side in court very soon. The children will be in a safe place in the meantime." "Where will they be taken?" he asked, heart thudding. "There is a child assessment center we use for these holds," she replied. "They would likely go there for evaluation." Dominic's mind screamed, "Sicario." He knew it would be that clinic, or at least that the Santoro plan was to divert them there. Victoria put a hand on Dominic's arm gently, as if to console him. "Maybe this is best, just for a couple of days, darling. Neutral ground where everyone will see they're okay. We'll have them back soon." Her touch burned. Dominic carefully pulled his arm away and rose to his feet. "I want it noted that I do not agree with this, and that I am fully willing to cooperate with any in-home services or supervision instead. There's no need to remove them." He had to try, at least for the record. Elaine nodded. "It's noted, but the order is signed. I'm sorry." Dominic's fists flexed at his sides. He looked over at Mr. Brenner, who gave him a slight, taunting smirk that Elaine couldn't see. The smugness nearly broke Dominic's carefully maintained calm, but he swallowed the fury. "We'll prepare their things," Victoria said, standing. She was a phenomenal actress. Her voice wavered as if on the verge of tears. "This breaks my heart. But I understand you have to do your job, Ms. Porter." Elaine offered a consoling nod, then stepped aside to radio something into her phone, likely instructions for the transport team to come forth. Dominic strode to the kitchen, not waiting for permission. He needed to see his children, to not waste a second. He found Lucas and Sophia huddled with Zara at the table. The moment he walked in, their faces filled with panic, having sensed something from the adults' expressions. "No!" Sophia burst out, eyes brimming. "Daddy, we heard, we have to go." Lucas slid off his chair and ran to Dominic, clutching him around the waist fiercely. "We don't want to. Please, we'll be good. We'll be good." Dominic knelt and enveloped them both. His throat tightened painfully. "Shh, listen to me," he said, as steadily as he could manage. "This is just for a couple of days, okay? I promise I will fix this. I will bring you home." Sophia shook her head frantically and clung to him. "Don't let them take us, please," she sobbed. Zara had tears in her eyes as well. "Sir, there has to be something." Behind them, Elaine Porter and the others entered. A silent, uniformed police officer had joined them, apparently waiting by the door until now, and he hovered in the doorway with an apologetic look. "Mr. Moretti," he said gently, "I'm here to assist CPS. Let's keep this peaceful, all right?" Dominic nodded tersely to the cop, and then focused on his children. He peeled Sophia slightly back so he could look into her face. "Sophia, Lucas, you remember what I promised last night?" he whispered. "No one will take you away permanently. I will come for you. You just have to be brave for a little bit. Can you do that for me? Be brave, like when you get a shot at the doctor and it stings, but you know it's over soon." Sophia hiccuped through tears. I can try," she whispered. Lucas scrubbed his face, trying to be tough even as tears fell. "Will you come tonight? Or tomorrow?" "Soon," Dominic vowed, feeling his heart splinter. "As soon as I possibly can. I love you both more than anything." By now, Victoria had fetched the children's coats and a small overnight bag, already packed. Dominic realized with another surge of anger that she had prepared that bag ahead of time. She knew this outcome was certain. Zara noticed as well. She shot Victoria a look of pure hatred that she quickly hid when Elaine stepped forward. "Lucas, Sophia," Elaine said softly. "I'm going to take you for a little ride, okay? You'll stay with some nice people for a few days and we will play some games and talk. I promise you'll be safe." Her attempt at a soothing tone fell flat. The children just pressed closer to their father. Dominic lifted Sophia into his arms and took Lucas's hand firmly. He walked toward the front door himself, refusing to let any stranger physically pull them from him. Surrounded by the CPS agent, the officer, and Victoria and Brenner, Dominic carried his children outside. In the driveway, a white van with government plates waited, rear doors open. Dominic's eyes were sharp, even through the haze of emotional turmoil. The van had Child Protective Services magnetized placards on the sides. He noted a corner of one placard was peeling slightly, showing a different logo underneath. That was odd. Official vehicles usually had permanent decals. And the license plate, partially covered with tape near one corner. Something wasn't right. Zara stepped out onto the front step just behind, unwilling to stay inside. Her gaze followed Dominic's. She noticed the van details and sucked in a breath. Stepping close to Dominic, she whispered urgently, "Sir, that van, it's not a real CPS vehicle." Dominic's pulse kicked. He had suspected as much. This wasn't the standard county van used for such cases. Likely it was one of Santoro's in disguise, ready to whisk the twins not to a standard center, but straight to Sicario's clutches. Elaine, not catching their whispers, approached Dominic with a gentle but firm posture. "It's time, Mr. Moretti." Victoria hovered by the open van, hands clasped as if in distress. But Dominic caught the faint flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. She wanted him to make a scene, to fight back now and ruin his image. But he wouldn't give her that. Instead, Dominic kissed Sophia's hair as he placed her into Elaine's arms. The little girl screamed and reached out desperately. Dominic's vision blurred at the edges. Lucas wrapped himself around Dominic's leg. The police officer gently pried him loose, murmuring comforting words that Lucas didn't seem to hear through his sobs. Dominic helped buckle the crying children into the back seat of the van, his hands shaking only slightly. Mr. Brenner stood nearby, supervising with a dispassionate half-smile. Dominic met his gaze with a steely one of his own, and leaned in close as if to adjust Sophia's seatbelt. Under his breath, meant only for the fixer, Dominic hissed, "If any harm comes to them, you're a dead man." Brenner's smirk faded for a split second, a flash of fear in his eyes. Dominic leaned back, expression once again composed for the onlookers. The rear doors of the van closed with a heavy thunk, cutting off the sight of Lucas and Sophia's tear-streaked, terrified faces behind the glass. Dominic stepped back, breathing hard, but steady. Victoria moved as if to touch his arm in support, but he sidestepped her. Elaine offered a pained expression. "We'll be in touch very soon, Mr. Moretti. Perhaps even earlier than 72 hours if things get clarified." Dominic simply gave a curt nod. His throat was too tight to trust himself speaking. The CPS worker and the observer got into the van's front, while the officer returned to his separate patrol car. With a final lurch of his stomach, Dominic watched as the van started down the driveway. At that moment, Zara gasped softly. Dominic's eyes sharpened. Through the back window, he saw one of the twins' small hands pressed against the glass, Sophia's, as if reaching for him. His heart plunged. And then, as the van rolled through the gate, Dominic noticed something else. The turn signal flicked not toward downtown where the assessment center would be, but toward the highway that led out of the city. They weren't even pretending to head to CPS facilities. His hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to jump in a car and chase that van right now, but he forced himself to stand still a moment longer as the official vehicles pulled away. Victoria was watching him intently, likely expecting him to either collapse in despair or fly into a rage. Instead, Dominic turned to her with an icy calm that made her involuntarily step back. "I have a meeting to get to," he said in an eerily normal voice. Victoria blinked. "What? Now?" He ignored her and addressed Zara. "Call Angelo. Tell him it's happening." Zara nodded and rushed back inside to the phone. Dominic then strode toward the garage. He'd grabbing his car keys from the valet stand by the door. Victoria hurried after him, acting perplexed and upset. "Dominic, where are you going? We should stay here and wait for the official hearing." He stopped and looked at her, his gaze cutting like a blade. "I'm going to bring our children home," he said. Then he walked out, leaving Victoria standing in the foyer as the dust from her perfect plan began to settle around her. Dominic's black sedan streaked down the city avenue, weaving through midday traffic as he pursued the white CPS van. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt, and his mind was singularly focused. Catch that van. Ahead, he could just make out the vehicle 2 lanes over, moving at a steady, law-abiding pace, as if nothing were amiss. It only fueled his anger. They thought they could slip away in plain sight. He tapped the Bluetooth earpiece he'd jammed on while racing out of the house. "Angelo!" he barked as soon as the line picked up. "We see you," Angelo answered. In the background, Dominic could hear the clacking of a keyboard. "We're tracking that van on city traffic cameras. They're heading west on Lakeshore, about to hit the interstate ramp." "Don't let them disappear," Dominic growled. "Already on it. We have a little tech trick ready." Angelo's voice hardened. "We're going to loop the traffic camera feeds in that area for 90 seconds starting now. No outside eyes on you. Do what you need to do." Dominic's grip on the wheel tightened in gratitude and resolve. At the next opportunity, he swerved and sped ahead, overtaking slower cars as horns blared. Up ahead, the van signaled to exit onto a less busy industrial road, likely a route to avoid attention. Fine by him. He caught sight of another familiar car in his rearview mirror, one of his black SUVs. To his surprise, he recognized Zara at the wheel, her face pale but determined. She must have grabbed a spare vehicle from the garage to follow. Dominic had a split second of concern. This could get dangerous, but he also understood. He couldn't worry about her now. The van turned onto a deserted stretch near an old shipping yard. The area was a warren of warehouses and back roads, perfect place to vanish if one wasn't followed by an enraged Mafia boss. Dominic seized the moment. He gunned the engine and swung his sedan abruptly in front of the van, skidding to a halt. The van's driver slammed the brakes, tires screeching, coming to a stop just a few feet from Dominic's car. Heart pounding, Dominic leaped out and stormed toward the van. The tinted windshield prevented him from seeing the driver's face clearly. He half expected the van to try to reverse and escape, but strangely, it stayed put, idling. "Open up!" Dominic shouted, striding to the driver's side door. He yanked it open, ready to haul the driver out by the collar. The seat was empty. Dominic's brain stuttered in confusion. The van was empty? He quickly looked to the back. Maybe the driver fled to check on the kids. The back of the van was empty too. The bench seats were vacant, seatbelts unbuckled. Lucas and Sophia were gone. For a second, Dominic felt actual dizziness. He blinked, trying to process. The van was still running, AC blasting. How could it be empty? Behind him, Zara's SUV rolled up. She jumped out and hurried over. "Sir," she started, then saw the vacant vehicle and fell silent, eyes wide in horror. Dominic jumped into the back of the van, frantically scanning for any clue of his children. He saw a small stuffed rabbit on the floor, Sophia's favorite toy, Mr. Flopsy. Snatching it up, he turned it over in his hands. Something crinkled. Taped to the toy's belly was a folded piece of paper. Dominic ripped it off and unfolded it, his heart hammering. In crude black letters it read, "Blue Room, midnight. Come alone." Zara climbed into the van behind him, her hand over her mouth. They're not here," she whispered, voice trembling. Dominic slammed a fist against the van wall, a guttural sound of fury ripping from his throat. He'd been duped. The whole CPS rescue was a choreographed play, and they'd switched the kids out under his nose. He pulled out his phone, dialing Angelo with shaking hands. Angelo answered on the first ring. "Dom, what happened? We lost the visual when you went under that overpass. It's a decoy," Dominic grated out. "The van is empty. They swapped the kids to another vehicle somewhere back there. They left a damn note." Angelo swore vividly. "We suspected they might try a switch. My guys are scanning feeds from every camera near that route." He paused. Then his tone turned grim. "Yes, there. A black Mercedes van peeled off from a side street near 14th. No plates. That has to be them. We're tracking, heading toward the outskirts. Maybe the old industrial district where that clinic has a wing." Dominic looked at the note in his hand. The words, "Blue Room," glaring up at him. Midnight. Hours from now. They wanted him to wait in agony. Zara knelt, picking something up from the floor. It was a small plastic bracelet, the type hospitals put on patients' wrists. Child-sized. She held it out, her voice shaking with anger. "Look, they left this behind." Dominic took it. The band had a label. Sicario Behavioral, patient transfer with a barcode and yesterday's date. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Patient transfer. Blue Room. They were preparing his children for whatever identity erasure or transfer that entailed. Zara wiped her eyes, fury replacing fear. Those monsters, taking children like this. Dominic placed Sophia's stuffed rabbit gently back on the seat. He climbed out of the van, every muscle in his body coiled tight. "They want me to come at midnight, alone, presumably to negotiate," he said quietly. Zara stepped out after him. "We can't just wait. What do we do now?" Dominic already had a plan forming. He surveyed the area. The decoy van was worthless now. He reached into the front and turned it off, pocketing the keys. Perhaps it would serve as evidence later. Angelo's tracking the real van. They're likely taking the kids straight to that clinic or some holding location until midnight. He turned to Zara. I need you to go back to the house, or somewhere safe. Her eyes flashed. No, I'm coming. Zara. Those kids trust me too. I'm not sitting at home while they're in danger. Despite the quaver in her voice, she stood firm, fists at her sides. Dominic realized arguing was a waste of precious time. He gave her a curt nod. All right, but you follow my orders. Understood? This is delicate. She nodded vigorously. He dialed Angelo again on speaker as they hurried to his sedan. Angelo, meet me at the safe house with whoever we can trust. Minimal men, low profile. No one makes a move until I say. I understand, Angelo said. What's your plan? They want to meet at midnight at the Blue Room, likely the old pediatric wing you mentioned. We're going to oblige, but on our terms. A harsh exhale came through the phone, almost a chuckle. We'll be ready. Santoro thinks he's orchestrating this, but we can turn the tables. Dominic ended the call. The adrenaline of action helped hold back the suffocating dread for his children. As he slid into the driver's seat, he reached over to the glove compartment and retrieved his handgun, a cold black Sig Sauer. Zara, in the passenger seat now, eyed the weapon uneasily. Dominic checked the magazine. Then, jaw tightening, he flicked the safety on and tucked the pistol under his seat instead of on his person. No blood? Zara asked softly. No unnecessary blood, he corrected. His voice was steely. My goal is to get Lucas and Sophia out safely. If I go in guns blazing, my kids could get hurt in the crossfire. I won't risk it. Zara let out a breath of relief. Understood. Dominic glanced at the digital clock on the dash. 12:30 p.m., nearly 12 hours until midnight. It was going to be the longest half-day of his life, but he wouldn't spend it idle. He gave one last look at the empty van sitting abandoned in the dusty lot, the symbol of his enemy's treachery. Then he floored the accelerator, the sedan roaring back toward the city. This isn't over, he murmured, more to himself than anyone, voice low and dangerous. They want a war in the shadows? They're about to get one. In the distance, thunder rumbled as if on cue, clouds gathering over Chicago's skyline. Dominic raced against the coming storm, preparing for a confrontation that would determine the fate of his children. Midnight neared as Dominic approached the old pediatric wing of the Sicario Behavioral Center. The building loomed at the end of a quiet, tree-lined street on the outskirts of the city. It looked abandoned from the outside, a relic of an old hospital complex with darkened windows and a padlocked chain on the front gate. But Dominic knew this had to be the place the note referred to as Blue Room. A single light was visible in a second-story window, stark against the otherwise dark facade. He parked a block away and walked the remaining distance, unarmed and alone as instructed. The late summer night was heavy with humidity. Thunderheads gathered in the distance. The only sounds were his steady footsteps on the pavement and the distant rumble of thunder. Dominic's heart thumped with grim resolve. Unbeknownst to any observers, Angelo and a handful of Dominic's most trusted men were establishing a silent perimeter around the building. No one would escape easily if things went bad, but they would not intervene unless Dominic signaled. The children's safety came first. Dominic approached a side door that Angelo's intel had identified as a likely entry. As promised, it was left ajar, a faint wedge of fluorescent light spilling out. Dominic pushed it open and stepped inside. He was met with the sterile scent of antiseptic and a deep, foreboding quiet. The corridors were dim, lit by only a few flickering fluorescent tubes overhead. Peeling pastel wallpaper with child-friendly patterns adorned the walls, vestiges of when this wing was for pediatric care. Now it felt like a ghost hospital. Dominic's footsteps echoed as he made his way down the hall, following the glow of light deeper into the facility. He passed a small nurse's station where computers hummed and file boxes were stacked high. Nobody manned it. He kept moving. A soft whimper reached his ears. Dominic's chest constricted. He'd know that sound anywhere. It was Sophia. He picked up his pace, rounding a corner into a larger room that had once been a children's ward. The sight before him made his blood run cold. At the center of the room were 2 hospital gurneys, and on each lay one of his twins. Lucas and Sophia were strapped down with soft restraints, IV lines hooked into their arms. Both children looked pale and dazed, and their eyes half open in a drugged stupor. Sophia's cheek was stained with tears. Lucas's head lolled to one side as he fought to stay conscious. Medical monitors beeped steadily beside them, displaying heart rates and blood pressure. Near the gurneys stood a metal cart with syringes and vials. The sedation setup, No doubt. Dominic forced himself not to rush forward immediately. He scanned the room, noting everything in an instant. Along one wall was a series of high-end printers and laminating machines, an identity forger's station, with freshly printed documents strewn about. On a bulletin board were pinned photographs of Lucas and Sophia, and beside them, 2 new sets of photos with different names, likely the new identities the Santoro crew intended to give them. A camera on a tripod faced a blank wall, as if ready to take ID pictures. It was a complete operation for making his children vanish into new lives. Rage burned in Dominic's veins, but he kept his face a mask of control. He had to be smart. A slow clapping sounded from the shadows at the far end of the room. Dominic turned towards the sound, eyes narrowed. From a side office stepped Antonio Santoro himself, flanked by a tall, wiry man in a lab coat, perhaps the infamous Dr. Evans, and Colin Brenner, the so-called liaison and fixer, still wearing the same suit from earlier, but now with a smug grin. And there, a few paces from them, was Victoria. Dominic's heart thudded. Victoria stood with arms crossed, looking oddly small and out of place amid the criminals and equipment. She was dressed in black leggings and a silk blouse, far from her usual polished look. Her face was drawn, eyes avoiding the children on the gurneys. Right on time, Dominic. Actually, Santoro pulled out a gold pocket watch. 7 minutes early. That might be a first for you. His voice echoed in the large room, smooth and taunting. He was a stout man in his 60s with silver hair and a grandfatherly face that belied his cruelty. Dominic moved closer to his children, but 2 of Santoro's men emerged from behind a curtain, subtly positioning themselves near the gurneys. They were armed, hands resting on holsters, though weapons not actively drawn. A warning. He stopped just out of arm's reach of Lucas's bed. His son's eyes flickered, focusing slightly. Dad, die, Lucas slurred, his small voice thick from drugs. I'm here, Lucas, Dominic said softly, aching to comfort him. I'm right here, brave boy. Sophia let out another feeble whimper, struggling against her straps. Daddy? Dominic locked eyes with Santoro, forcing himself to remain calm. Let them go, Santoro. Santoro tutted and strolled forward leisurely. I intend to, Moretti. Just as soon as we conclude our business. Dominic's gaze shifted to Victoria. She had yet to speak or meet his eyes. Vic, he said, addressing her directly, using the nickname he'd once spoken with affection, but now with quiet anger. Are you proud of what you've done? Victoria flinched, but before she could answer, Santoro interjected. If you want to blame someone, Dominic, blame me. He spread his hands in a mockingly benevolent gesture. It was time someone civilized taught you a lesson. You and your father's old-fashioned ways, ruling by fear and force. This is a new age. I can destroy you without a single bullet. Dominic bared his teeth in a humorless smile. Big talk for a man who kidnapped 2 children. Some civilized lesson. Santoro's eyes hardened. Spare me the moral outrage. In our world, Dominic, family is leverage. You should know. You've been untouchable for years, precisely because you hid these 2 away like little treasures. Did you think marrying a nice socialite would keep them safe? He chuckled, nodding toward Victoria. Dominic felt a muscle tick in his jaw. He looked at Victoria. All this time, you were working with him. Victoria opened her mouth, but her throat bobbed and no words came out. Her eyes were glassy with tears she refused to shed. Brenner, the fixer, chimed in with a sneer. She did what needed doing. And she wasn't alone. Your dear fiancé had help from some of your own household, too. Dominic's mind flickered to the new security cameras, the subtle sabotage. It was possible 1 or 2 staff had been bought off. He would deal with that later. Santoro stepped to Sophia's gurney and lightly brushed a strand of hair from the unconscious girl's forehead. Dominic stiffened, every muscle in his body primed to lunge if the man hurt her. Santoro noticed and smiled. Relax, the child is fine. For now. He turned back to Dominic. All business. Here are the terms. You, Dominic Moretti, will step down from your position in the commission and cede control of half your territories to my organization. You will leave Chicago indefinitely. In exchange, your children will be returned to you safely, and you can live out your days quietly. Somewhere far away. You'll have your lives, but your reign ends tonight. Dominic felt Sophia's tiny fingers brush against his hand. She was semi-conscious, seeking him even in her haze. He gently took her hand, a show of calm for her sake more than anything. She relaxed slightly at his touch. He raised his eyes to Santoro. You think after this I'd trust any deal we make? Return my children first? Then we talk territories. Brenner let out a barking laugh. We're not fools. You get them when we see proof you've relinquished power, not before. Santoro nodded. We have attorneys ready to file papers by morning. You'll publicly confess to certain financial irregularities. Enough to force your resignation from your own enterprises and the commission. You vanish, disgraced, and your heirs get to grow up. Dominic's mind raced. If he agreed, maybe he could reverse things later, but no. A public collapse and stepping down under legal duress would cripple him. Others would fill the power vacuum immediately. There was no guarantee Santoro would honor his word and let them live peacefully either. A man who would drug and steal children wouldn't hesitate to eliminate Dominic once he was of no use. He needed another play. Just then, from the corner of his eye, he noticed movement behind the one-way observation window that looked into this ward. It was subtle, just the slightest shift of a silhouette. It could only be Zara. She must have snuck in along the route Dominic had, staying hidden. Indeed, Zara had crept along after Dominic, unseen by Santoro's crew. Now she crouched behind that large observation window, peering in. Her eyes went to Dominic, then to a security camera mounted high on the wall above, its red record light blinking. She followed wires from the camera to a nearby monitoring station, an active computer. Zara's heart pounded. That camera likely held the recorded evidence of all that was happening. The kidnapping, Santoro's very incriminating speech. If she could somehow transmit that feed outside these walls, it could blow this wide open. Making a split-second decision, Zara slipped into the adjacent control room through a side door. The room was empty, likely left unmanned because Brenner and Santoro were confident in their privacy. On the monitors, she saw multiple views of the blue room scene. Dominic facing Santoro, the children on the gurneys, Victoria off to the side, looking shell-shocked. Zara found the main computer and quickly sat down. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She had limited tech knowledge, but enough to recognize an open connection. The system was online, maybe even streaming to a remote server. If she could redirect it or share it, in the ward, Santoro was growing impatient at Dominic's silence. You always were too stubborn for your own good, he snorted, but think carefully. Is a piece of Chicago worth more than your twins' lives? If you refuse, I have other buyers interested in 2 healthy children with untraceable identities. Or perhaps Dr. Bay Evans here will simply ensure they never wake up from their next dose. The doctor in the lab coat looked away, ashamed but compliant. Dominic felt a lethal calm wash over him. If you touch one more hair on them, Santoro, I swear, you're hardly in a position to swear anything. Santoro interrupted sharply. Decide. Step down and live, or fight, and watch them disappear forever. Behind the window, Zara managed to open a browser on the computer. She navigated to the emergency contact page of a national child rescue NGO, one she remembered seeing pamphlets for at her old hospital job, and there was a hotline number and, crucially, an online chat option for reporting ongoing child abuse. Heart-hammering, Zara clicked the chat and prayed someone was on the other end at this late hour. A box popped up. This is Child Safe Network. You are reporting a live emergency. Zara hurriedly typed. Children kidnapped. In danger at Sicario Behavioral Pediatric Wing now. Live stream footage incoming. She then began uploading the camera feed data, hoping the NGO operators could receive it and alert law enforcement. It was a gamble. If police stormed in too soon, a shootout could start. But if they waited, Santoro might kill the kids or vanish with them. She had to take that chance. As the feed transmitted, Zara quietly activated a silent alarm on the system meant for internal emergencies. That would alert hospital security or admin if any legitimate staff were monitoring, without making a sound in the ward itself. Back in the ward, Santoro's patience was wearing thin. He nodded to Brenner, who drew a handgun and aimed it casually at Lucas's limp form. Maybe a little incentive, Brenner said, smirking. Victoria finally found her voice, panicking. Wait, we had a deal. No one was supposed to get hurt. Shut up, Santoro snapped, throwing her a glare. You're in this up to your neck, girl. Don't go soft now. Dominic's heart thundered. He held up a hand. Stop, Santoro. You win. The words tasted like acid, but he said them. I'll do it. I'll sign whatever. Just put the gun down. Let the kids go. Santoro raised an eyebrow, uncertain if Dominic's capitulation was genuine or a ploy. Swear it on your honor, he demanded. Dominic forced himself to nod slowly. On my honor as Dominic Moretti, I will step down and relinquish control. Just give me my children back. He despised himself for uttering those words, but it was the only way to buy time, and perhaps lower their guard. Brenner's gun remained trained on Lucas, but Santoro smiled wide. Excellent. A wise decision. He gestured to Dr. Evans. Wake them up a bit. The doctor nervously moved to adjust the IV drips, likely to reverse the sedative slightly so the children could be moved or handed over conscious. Dominic's shoulders sagged in feigned defeat. His eyes flickered up to the camera in the corner. Its red light winked steadily. He hoped to God that evidence was being captured by someone outside now. Suddenly, a crash came from the control room behind the observation window. Everyone in the ward startled. A muffled cry followed. Zara's voice. Dominic realized with alarm that something had happened. Brenner reacted first. What the? He motioned to one of the goons, who rushed into the control room through the side door. A shout and scuffle were heard. Victoria looked utterly confused. Santoro's face darkened. Who else is here, Moretti? He barked. Before Dominic could answer, the goon dragged Zara out into the ward, holding her by the elbow. She had a small cut on her forehead and looked furious more than frightened. In the goon's other hand was a syringe, which he pressed menacingly near her neck. She was on the computer, boss, growled the thug. Not sure what she did. Zara caught Dominic's eye, and despite the peril, he saw triumph flash there. He had to suppress a faint smile. She'd done something, hopefully exactly what was needed. Brenner scowled, recognizing her from earlier. The maid. I should have known you'd poke your nose in further. Santoro's expression turned lethal. Well, another little rat in the trap. He glared at Dominic. You said you came alone. She must have followed me, Dominic said quickly. This changes nothing. Let her go. She's inconsequential. Zara shot him a brief offended look, but Dominic willed her to trust him. Inconsequential? Santoro echoed. Hardly. She's a witness now to our negotiations. We can't have that. He nodded at the thug holding Zara. Go on then. The goon grinned and adjusted his grip on the syringe, bringing it closer to Zara's neck. This is a fast-acting poison, sweetheart, he hissed to her. No pain. You'll just go to sleep, permanently. Zara winced, but kept her chin high, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear. Dominic's heart thundered. The next few seconds would decide everything. The tip of the syringe hovered a mere inch from Zara's skin, a breath away from tragedy, as the room stood poised on a knife's edge between violence and salvation. Put the needle down, Dominic's voice cracked like a whip through the ward. Or your boss loses his tongue tonight. The goon holding Zara hesitated, startled by the cold authority in Dominic's tone. Brenner and Santoro also paused, eyes flicking back to Dominic. In that moment, Dominic stood tall and fearsome, even unarmed and surrounded. It wasn't a bluff, they all sensed it. He was done playing games. The thug slowly lowered the syringe, unsure. Dominic seized the initiative. He stepped nearer to Santoro, his gaze never leaving the mob boss's face. This ends now, he said in a low, deadly voice. You wanted to sit down, Santoro? Fine, the terms have changed. My children leave here now, awake and safe. Then you and I will settle our business between us. Santoro bristled. We already have a deal. No. Dominic's interruption was icy. The deal has changed. Release them. Now. For a tense beat, no one moved. Then, unexpectedly, Victoria broke the stalemate. She hurried to Sophia's gurney, and with trembling fingers, began undoing the straps holding the little girl's ankles and wrists. Tears streamed down Victoria's face as she worked. I'm sorry, she kept whispering under her breath, though whether it was to Sophia or Dominic or herself was unclear. Dr. Evans, perhaps eager to end this peacefully, took that cue and quickly did the same for Lucas, freeing the boy's limp form from restraints. Santoro glared at Victoria. Traitorous fool, he snarled, raising a hand as if he might strike her, but Dominic stepped in between with lightning speed. Try it, Dominic growled softly, and it'll be the last thing you do. The two Mafia bosses locked eyes, and for the first time that night, Santoro saw it. The glint of inevitable defeat in Dominic's glare. Brenner's confidence was evaporating. The fixer's eyes darted around, noting that something had shifted. Zara's presence, Dominic's fearless stance, Victoria's collapse of loyalty. It was all unraveling, and then came the final blow. From the hallway outside the ward, hurried footsteps and raised voices echoed, Police! Don't move! The double doors burst open and uniformed officers poured in, guns drawn. Behind them was a stern woman in a business suit, likely a higher-up from Child Protective Services or a government agency, and 2 hospital security guards. Angelo was there too, bringing up the rear with his hands raised innocently, a ghost of a satisfied smile on his face. The officers took in the scene with hawk-like precision. 2 children on hospital beds, clearly drugged, armed men around them, a woman in distress, and Dominic Moretti standing protectively over the children. "Everyone, hands in the air," one cop shouted. Chaos ensued. Santoro's goons instinctively reached for their weapons, but Angelo's voice rang out, "Don't be stupid!" At the same time, Dominic barked, "Stand down!" Amazingly in unison with the lead officer who yelled, "Drop your weapons!" Outnumbered and caught red-handed, Santoro's thugs yielded. Guns thudded to the floor. Brenner, realizing this was checkmate, raised his hands with a curse. Santoro's face mottled in rage and panic. He looked as if he might go for a hidden gun, but then a red laser dot appeared on his chest, an officer targeting him. He slowly lifted his hands too, seething. Zara was released by her captor, who attempted to back away, only to be tackled and restrained by a cop. Another officer gently pulled Zara aside to safety. She pointed immediately to Lucas and Sophia. "Help them first." Paramedics who had accompanied the police rushed in with a gurney. They began checking the children's vitals and loosening the half-removed IV lines. Sophia began to cry weakly, confused by the commotion. Lucas coughed and slurred. "Daddy?" I'm here," Dominic murmured, instantly at his son's side. Now that guns were down, he gathered Lucas into his arms and then reached for Sophia, cradling both groggy children against him. Relief like he'd never known flooded through him. Lucas's head flopped against Dominic's shoulder, and Sophia curled into his chest, whimpering softly. He could feel their hearts beating. They were alive, safe. "It's okay, angels," he whispered, voice thick. "You're safe now. I've got you." Victoria stepped back as an officer moved to restrain her wrists with zip ties. She didn't resist, her face a portrait of misery and guilt. As they led her past Dominic and the twins, she spoke in a cracked whisper. "Dominic, But she couldn't finish. Dominic turned a hard gaze on her. "You starved my children. You terrorized them," he said quietly, a world of disappointment and anger in his tone. "There's nothing left to say, Victoria." She broke into a sob, hanging her head as the police pulled her away. The woman who once presented herself as a charitable socialite and loving fiancée was now exposed to the world as a child abuser and kidnapper. Her fall from grace would be absolute. Meanwhile, Santoro was protesting loudly as 2 officers patted him down and cuffed him. "Do you know who I am?" he barked at the stern CPS official who stepped forward. "I was rescuing those children from an unstable environment. This man," he jerked his chin toward Dominic, "is a violent criminal. I demand you arrest him too." The CPS woman looked around at the evidence, the fake documents, the sedation equipment, the terrified children in Dominic's arms. She fixed Santoro with a withering glare. "Be quiet, Mr. Santoro. We have enough evidence here to bury you and your associates for a long time." She held up a tablet that one of her team had brought. Zara's transmitted feed was on the screen, showing clear footage of Santoro's earlier gloating monologue and threats. "And it's all been recorded." Santoro's face went ashen. His bravado failed him utterly as they dragged him out, reading him his rights. Angelo approached Dominic, who was still holding both kids, and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Boss, Dominic," he corrected with a smile. "It's over. They're safe." Dominic closed his eyes, offering a silent prayer of thanks. When he opened them, he looked to Zara. She stood a few steps away, rubbing at her bruised arm. Before he could speak, Lucas's faint voice rose. "Auntie Zara." He was blinking slowly, but he had registered her presence. Sophia lifted her head from Dominic's chest. "Zara," she mumbled, reaching a tiny hand out towards her beloved housekeeper. Zara hurried over, tears shining in her eyes. Dominic carefully transferred Sophia into Zara's gentle embrace. The little girl curled against her like a refuge. Lucas, still in Dominic's arms, gave Zara a wobbly smile. You came," he said, slurring a bit. "I promised I'd never let anyone hurt you if I could help it," Zara whispered, kissing the top of Sophia's head and then cupping Lucas's cheek. "I'm here, darlings. I'm here." The twins, still dazed but recognizing their savior, snuggled into the adults holding them. Lucas managed to whisper, "You didn't let her take us. You saved us." Zara choked back a sob and looked at Dominic, as if to share this moment of relief and gratitude. Dominic's throat was tight. He reached out and squeezed Zara's hand. "We saved them," he corrected softly. "I couldn't have done it without you." A paramedic gently interrupted to examine the twins more thoroughly. Dominic and Zara reluctantly relinquished them to a stretcher, though Lucas kept a grip on Dominic's fingers until he absolutely had to let go. The medics assured them the children were stable and just needed to flush the sedatives from their system. As the bustle began to die down and arrests were made, Dominic watched from a few paces away, ensuring his eyes never left Lucas and Sophia. He felt Angelo step beside him. Angelo chuckled quietly. "I think the commission will approve of tonight's outcome." Dominic glanced at his consigliere. "We'll have some mess to clean up politically, but yes, using law and civilians as a weapon. Targeting children, Santoro broke the code. He's finished." Angelo nodded. "And you, my friend, have never looked stronger. You protected your family and took down an enemy without firing a shot." He patted Dominic's back. "The old man would be proud." Dominic's eyes grew moist at that, and he cleared his throat. "Thank you, Angelo. Truly." One by one, Santoro's crew were marched out in cuffs. Santoro himself passed by Dominic under heavy guard. The two men locked gazes one final time. Santoro opened his mouth, perhaps to spit some curse or threat, but Dominic spoke first, voice low enough that only Santoro could hear. "Next time, don't touch children. That was your last mistake." Santoro said nothing, eyes dropping, and he was led away into the night. In the aftermath, Dominic insisted on riding with the twins in the ambulance to the hospital for precautionary monitoring. Zara climbed in as well without question. Angelo would handle everything else. Coordination with lawyers, speaking with the police on Dominic's behalf. By now, CPS was well aware Dominic Moretti had been the victim of a heinous plot, not the perpetrator. Within a few hours, Lucas and Sophia were given the all-clear and allowed to go home, groggy but otherwise unharmed. The first rays of dawn were breaking as Dominic carried Sophia up the steps of their mansion, Zara walking close beside with Lucas holding her hand. Home, safe. Exhausted and emotionally drained, the family trudged in. Dominic thanked the staff who remained, those he knew he could trust, for their vigilance through the night, and sent everyone to get some rest. He only had one task left to do before he could collapse. In the kitchen, the soft morning light shone on the pantry door. Those faint scratches were still there, barely visible, but forever a reminder of what his children had endured. Dominic fetched a small toolbox. With careful, deliberate motions, he removed the pantry door from its hinges and carried it outside to the curb. It would be replaced with a new one, free of scars. When he came back in, he found Lucas and Sophia awake on the couch, snuggled under blankets, Zara hovering after giving them some water. Dominic joined his twins, pulling them into his arms once more. He couldn't seem to hold them enough, assure himself they were really here. "We're all together, right, Daddy?" Sophia asked in a tiny voice. "Yes, sweetheart, all together," he confirmed softly. Lucas peered up at him. Is Aunt Victoria gone?" Dominic exchanged a glance with Zara, then nodded to his son. "Yes, she's gone. She won't ever hurt you again." The twins visibly relaxed, as if a dark cloud had finally lifted from their young minds. Zara sniffled discreetly, smiling at them. Dominic gently stroked his children's hair. "From now on," he said quietly, "I promise, no more bad people in this house, no more fear." He glanced toward the doorway where the pantry door had been, remembering the scratches he'd carried out. The first golden light of sunrise was spilling in, chasing away every shadow in their home. "No more darkness," Dominic murmured, pressing a kiss to Sophia's brow, then Lucas's. He looked up, meeting Zara's warm, loyal gaze across the couch. His family, bound not by blood, but by unbreakable trust. Not in this house, and in the growing light of day, safe in the sanctuary of their home, the twins finally smiled.